So welcome, my name is Aaron Boltman. I'm the Director of Operations for EnableSoft. I'm also one of the product managers. It's my great pleasure to spend some time with you today to show you some of the features that we have here in FoxtrotOne. Today's training is designed for FoxtrotOne beginners, so those of you who've never used our product before or have some lightweight use of our product, today will be beneficial for you. So what you see on the screen here is a picture of the welcome screen that you're greeted with when you launch the FoxtrotOne application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project, and a project is saved in a single file, much like a Word document. Essentially what we're going to do today is go through the steps of creating a very simple script. And the example I'm going to show you today is going to be loading in a database of 50 users and entering that information into a business application. In this case, we're going to use the Windows address book. It's a pretty simplistic application, but it parallels in many ways to the applications that you've used in your workplace. So anytime you want to build a script in Foxtrot, you would start by opening up Foxtrot and also making sure that your target application is open. So I'm going to kind of show you through the interface here of FoxtrotOne. The top section here we call the Script Center. The Script Center is essentially where you build the steps, or what we call actions, in the tasks that you want to automate. Below the Script Center you'll find the View Center, where you can view various pieces of information, including the database you have loaded, variables, and a few other things that we'll be getting into during the training course today. And at the very bottom you'll see that we have the blue run bar. This is how you control the speed and what records the script will run, and it's very easy to play and stop the script. It's much like a DVD or VCR controls down here, so we'll be getting to that as well. So a typical application that you would want to use Foxtrot for is entering a large amount of information into your business application. Now that's just one of the many things that you can do. You can also use Foxtrot to go into your business application and pull information out and generate a database for you, or a report. This is sometimes called data mining or data reporting. So for those of you who need that type of functionality, Foxtrot is capable of doing that as well. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you an example of us taking an existing database of information and entering that into our business application. So I'm going to start by going down to the data view of the View Center and clicking Open Data. Now Foxtrot supports all the major versions, various versions of data files. We support everything from Access, DBase, Paradox, Excel, Lotus Notes, comma delimited files, fixed width files. We even have a way for you to import data off of SQL Server. So we give you access to pretty much all the different versions that you have out there. And in this case I'm going to load a DBase file because I've got one handy. When you install our product, we give you this test data database. It has these 50 records that I'm about to show you here. So you can either follow along building this script, or if you want to try it after the training, you can do that as well. So now that I have my database loaded, we want to begin the steps of interacting with this application. Now the great news is that if you're not a programmer, you don't have to worry about writing any kind of code. This is one of the benefits of using our technology, because you don't have to be a technical person, you don't have to be a programmer, you don't even have to know what type of application you're interacting with. You don't need to know if it's written in VB or C# or Java. All you have to do is drag and drop to the pieces of the screen that you'd like to interact with. So I'm going to demonstrate the very first thing that you would normally use in building a script, which is this icon looking, this selector up here. Sometimes people refer to it as the bullseye. We call it the selector. This selector allows you to drag and drop, so I'm going to click my mouse down. My cursor turns into this nifty little targeting icon, and you can drag this over various pieces of the window. And you'll notice something very quickly, how Foxtrot puts a black box around the target, so you can see how Foxtrot is locking onto various pieces of this window. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to target the title bar of my application, because that gives us access to some really handy actions. Now as soon as I drop that selector on the title bar, we see that our action builder form appears. This form is how you build every single type of action in Foxtrot. So once you learn how to use this form, it's the same no matter what you're trying to do. So let me get you a little bit familiarized with what you're seeing here. In the top left corner you'll see a preview panel, and this essentially is just a small a thumbnail picture of the item you just targeted as a visual way for you to make sure that you're working with the right thing. This is especially handy if you're editing an action, because we'll actually show you the picture of what you were targeting when the action was first created. Just beneath that picture you'll see a list of actions. Now this is really nice because these actions have been provided because Foxtrot knows that these are the actions that you can perform with the target that we've chosen. What that means is because I've targeted the title bar of this application, Foxtrot understands that I'm trying to work with the whole window. So it provides additional actions such as the close window, maximize, minimize, things of that nature. These actions would not be available, say, if I had targeted a button, because the close window action wouldn't make sense if you were targeting a button. So now that you see what type of actions are available here, it's just a matter of finding the one that we want to choose and put that into our script. So in this case, I'm going to choose the launch application action, because the very first thing I want my script to do is open up my business application. Now, once you choose the action from the list, you'll see on the Action tab, this is where you configure the settings for that particular action. So depending on the action that you choose from the list on the left, you'll see a different panel on the right. The note field down here will always be available for all actions, and that gives you a great way to document what you're doing. Document here what I'm doing, and I always encourage people to put lots of notes in their script, because if you ever hand this off to someone who didn't write the script, they can read these nice little blue notes and understand what you were trying to do. Or even if a year later you come back to maintain a script that you've written, it's much easier if you have the documentation of what you were trying to do in the first place. We have some other tabs along the top here that we'll be getting to in just a little bit. But essentially the timing tab allows you to control how long you're going to wait for the target to appear on the screen. Error handling is available for certain actions. In this case, the launch application is not available. But these are allowing you to control what happens if an error occurs while waiting for this target. And the advanced tab is also available for specific actions, and we'll touch on that briefly at the end of the training today. So most of the actions that you see here, you'll be able to select from the list. FoxtrotOne sets up all the defaults, so this may be all you need. So in this case, I would just click OK. Now right before I click OK, I want to mention something, because just to the left of that OK button, you'll see a button that says Execute. When it's depressed, what that means is as soon as I click the OK button, it will immediately add this action to my script, followed by immediately executing that action. And this is on by default because we believe that executing actions as you go is much easier when you're building a script, because the business application will follow along with the steps in the task you're trying to automate. So if I were to click OK, you'll notice two things happen. It creates the action, and it follows up by running that action. Now in this case, my application was already running, so Foxtrot was smart enough not to open it twice. So I'm going to close this and come back and run this again. I can do that by double clicking, and you'll see just that quickly Foxtrot was able to launch my business application. I didn't have to program any kind of code to do that. A simple drag and drop, pick what I want to do, and Foxtrot takes care of the heavy lifting for us. And that's essentially how you build all actions that interact with your target application. So whenever you grab this selector and you choose your target, we say that you're building an interactive action, and that's all these actions here are called interactive actions. And that just simply means that these actions interact with your business application. Conversely, if you see below the selector, there are more actions here. We call these the non-interactive actions because these do not work directly with your business application. These do other things like calculation, closing your database. It gives you ways to post message boxes and prompts to your end user. You can have your script send an email, play a sound, go through and create and delete files and folders. Lots of different things available here. There's a long list of nice things to pick from. Let's say I wanted to change the speed of my script or run another task. These are great things that you can choose from very easily in this script. So what I'm going to do after I've chosen to launch the application is I want to choose how am I going to put the information in. Well, it's a very simple task. All you have to do is know how to use your business application, and you know how to write your script. Because we're going to teach Foxtrot how to perform this task just like I would if I were to hire a new employee and I was teaching that individual how to perform the task. So if I hire a new employee named Sally, I'd sit Sally down and say, Sally, in order to enter a new contact, I want you to click File, New Contact, and enter the information into this screen. So we're going to teach Foxtrot to do the same thing. So the very first thing we want Foxtrot to do is get to these menus. Now if you'll notice, anytime you bring up a menu in an application, you'll notice that menu will disappear just as soon as I go back and grab my selector or go back to Foxtrot. Now of course that means a lot of people are asking, well, how would I target that menu if it's not on the screen? Well, we thought of that for you, and we give you an easy way to get to the menus. To get to those, you target the title bar of your program. Again, we see the thumbnail picture of what is on the screen of the target you've chosen, and you'll see we have a menu click action. Now the menu click action is different from the click action. The click, double click, and right click actions are the actual physical mouse attached to your computer. That's different than Foxtrot's intelligent menu click, which actually dives in and accesses these applications. So if we were to look at this application here, we see File, Edit, View on the menus up there. You'll notice File, Edit, View, and so forth are made available directly to you in Foxtrot. So I can go to the File menu and choose New Contact, and again this correlates with the menus that you see in my application, and then I click OK. Again, two things occur: the action is created and it's executed, so the business application follows along and brings up the window. So you can see now we're poised to build the next action. So I would continue on choosing the fields or targets that I want to interact with. So in this case, the very first thing I want to do is drag to my first name field, because I want to enter the first name. I drag and drop to that field. There's my picture of the target chosen, and as I mentioned earlier, you see that the list of actions are now different because Foxtrot is smart enough to know what type of target you're trying to automate. So in this case, we want to send data to the text box. So I'm going to choose the send data. If we wanted to get information out of the text box, we would copy that data out of the text box. So sending data is what we want to do here. Again, as soon as I click the action, we see the action panel on the right come alive, and I can enter the information I want to input into that field. Now if I were to put in Tony here, Tony would be entered every single time the script runs, and that's probably not desirable in this case. Instead, we want to use the first name field that's located in our database that we loaded at the beginning of the project. So I'm going to open up our database by clicking this magic wand at the end here. This magic wand gives you access to the expression builder. All this is a whole collection of great information that you can use very easily in your script. We give it to you at your fingertips, so it's very easy to pull into different actions. In this case, I'm going to choose first name, and this is in our database view, and these are the fields in the database I currently have loaded. These fields would look different if I had a different database loaded. Some of the other things that we make available to you here are information about the FoxtrotOne application. We give you various information about your computer, so if you need to know what your domain name is, for example, ours is EnableSoft, or if you need to know how long the computer was running, you can do that. So lots of great things to include here. This is very useful, especially if you're generating log files, needing to put technical information into an audit system somewhere, things of that nature. We give you access to date and time components. This is probably one of the most popular list of things that you can pull out of this form here. We give you access to a date timestamp, and we even give you access to pieces of the date and time. So if I just needed to know the current minute or the current month, I could get that information. Now keep in mind, we call this the expression builder because you can put many of these things together to create one long sequence of information. For those of you that are programmers, that's called concatenating the information together. So in this case, I'm just going to choose first name, but had I wanted to put more pieces of information together, I would just go through and double click those pieces, and you'll notice we call these tokens. These tokens are put together, surrounded in square brackets, and this is how Foxtrot knows what information you'd like to enter in that field. We give you access to files and folders that are common on your workstation. We give you access to keys. This is pretty neat. We give you access to every single key on your keyboard, including all the F keys, upper lowercase keys, numbers, all the symbols, and even extended characters that aren't so easy to create with your keyboard. Information about your project is at your fingertips here, so if you need to know the current database file that you have open, it's available to you here. If you need to know the current record number you're on, or the total records, all that information is easily accessible from the Action Builder. Other special items here, we give you random number generators, so if I needed a number between 1 and 99, Foxtrot would go ahead and generate that for me. In this case, it's an example of a random number 36. GUIDs are also available. These are just unique numbers, so if you needed a unique number, we would give you one of those. A GUID stands for Global Unique Identifier, for those who are curious. And then we also give you access to variables. It'll actually say first name here, and Foxtrot knows that that's the first name field from your database. There are some other options available when building the action. You can select these how you'd like, and then you click OK. So again, the send data action was created in my script, and it was also executed, which is why art was put in, because art is the first name of the current record I'm on, in this case record 1. So now you kind of got the gist of how you build this, so we're going to drag and drop, pick what we want to do, fill out the action settings, and then let Foxtrot build that action for us and run it. There's our last name. One more example, I'll put in the email address. I'll send the data to the screen. And let's see if I have an email address in my database. I think I do. Here we go. We create it. So drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop. That's going to be kind of the way that you build these scripts. And every now and then you'll be sprinkling in some of these non-interactive actions depending on what you want to do in your system. So again, I entered the email address. I need to click this add button. Now keep in mind, a lot of people are very tempted to want to click this add button yourself because you're used to clicking that in your app. You don't want to do anything manual in the application. You want Foxtrot to do all the work for you, because if Foxtrot doesn't click add, it won't be part of your script at the end. So let's go back in and we'll target the add button. There's our nifty preview so we can visually confirm we locked onto the right thing. In this case, I'm going to click. Always putting notes as I go. And then the last thing we want to do is click the OK button to finalize this entry in my system. And just like that, we've taught Foxtrot how to enter the information into the system, just like we would our new employee Sally. So now we can have Foxtrot run this process for every record in my database. So now let's take a look how we do that. First I like to do is hit the save button to make sure that my script is saved before I begin running it. We already have our records loaded. Now before we actually run this, I want to point out a few things. First off is anytime a database is loaded into Foxtrot, we add 3 additional fields to your database. So here I have last name, first name, address. All these were part of my original data, but there are 3 fields down at the bottom that were added to our database for us. The log text field, the added field, and the record number field. The record number is just a way that we can assign a unique number to every record. So think of that as just record 1, 2, 3, 4. And anytime we open up your database, we renumber all of your records starting from 1. The added field, this is very important. Anytime Foxtrot processes a record, it puts a capital A in the added field. Now the field is called added, but we also refer to it as marking the record. Now you'll notice I'm on record 1 of 50, and my green button on the right says unmarked. What that means is Foxtrot has not yet processed this record, but if it had, it would put an A in this added field. I can actually click this button to mark it myself. Now the button says marked in red, and I see the A in the added field. Conversely, I can unmark the record by clicking the button again, And again, now it says unmarked, and the added field now is blank. Now the reason why this is important is because Foxtrot will mark every single record it runs as it's running the record. What that means is as soon as record 1 has been processed, Foxtrot will mark the record. What that means is if you're running a script over the weekend that's running 500,000 records, and Saturday night the power goes out or something interrupts your script, you won't lose track of where Foxtrot's at in your database. That's really good because what I can do is if I come in and see that Foxtrot is stalled out for any reason, I can simply hit the run button again and Foxtrot will automatically skip or move past any record that's been marked. And this way you don't accidentally rerun a record more than once. So we're going to see here that we've already run record 1, but it's not marked. And the reason for this is that I was building the script. So if I wanted Foxtrot to skip record 1, I would just simply tap this button, marking it, because we already see that we've already added this in the system at the time we were building the script. So now that you understand how Foxtrot marks these records, we're going to come down and set it up to run all 50 records. First thing that we want to observe here is the speed slider. Foxtrot works at various speeds, all depending on what you're trying to do. If you're working on a brand new script and you want to see how it's working, you typically want to keep the speed slower so that you can visually inspect what's happening on the screen. And as you become more confident that you have authored all the steps correctly and nothing is missing, and you want this to process in a production environment very quickly, you would simply slide the speed slider up in your script. Now if you want to get fancy, you can even control the speed using the change speed action directly in your script. So you could use the change speed action to accelerate the speed of your script in certain sections and slow it down in others. But in this case we're going to manually set the speed to about medium, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the run options button because I don't want it to run all the records. I'm going to show you some of the options that you have available when running your script. You'll see that the run option here is I can either run my script exactly one time, which in this case is not very useful because I need to do this process for all 50 records. You also have a repeat option, which allows you to repeat the script an exact number of times, or you can even check the box to the right for an unlimited number of times. So it will repeat the script indefinitely. And you'd want to use that in situations where you were monitoring an email inbox for inbound emails, for example. You can have Foxtrot sit there for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and monitor an inbox, and as soon as something comes in, Foxtrot could grab that email, take action on it, and do something with it. So there's lots of ways that you can set Foxtrot up to automate your tasks. The last option, and the most popular when dealing with a large database of records, is the records option. You can choose the record range to run, in this case record 1 to 50, and regardless of what records you choose here, again, Foxtrot will never run a record that's marked. So even if I say start on record 1, that first record will be skipped because it's currently marked. And if you don't want to keep track of the ending record, you can just check all records and Foxtrot will run all unmarked records. So let's go ahead and let this run. I'm going to run record 1 through 50 at medium speed. I'm going to hit the rewind button to make sure that the process begins at the top, and I'm going to hit run. We'll notice something while it's running. The first is that there's the yellow arrow that you see there in your script. That yellow arrow is pointing to the action that's being executed right now. We also see on the left side that our business application is accepting information from the various records. In this case, we just entered William Schock, and now we're entering David Lindman. So we're entering that information into the business application. Notice we didn't have to do any type of looping in our script because Foxtrot is designed to work with large databases of records, and we automatically rerun the script for every record for you, so you don't have to get tangled up in complicated loops. Although if you did need to run any type of loop in your script, we have that capability as well. Now, while the script is running, you'll notice something down in the Run Center. You'll see that the play button is now a pause button. That pause button, if I were to press it, is going to immediately stop my script regardless of where it's at in the process. Just to the right of that, you'll see the square stop button. What that will do if I click it is it will allow Foxtrot to finish processing the record that it's on and stop once it reaches the end of the script for that record. And this is really nice, especially if you don't want to leave a record half input into a system. That's the difference between the pause and the stop. So I'm going to come in and pause my script. And what we can see here on the screen is since I paused it, you'll see that it's actually stopped halfway through my record. It was in the middle of entering record 12, but you notice since it did not complete record 12 is still unmarked. So now if I were to go back to record 11, notice how record 11 is marked. And this is a really good automatic disaster recovery built into your script. So now if I were to come in here and hit play again, even though it says 1 to 50, Foxtrot will automatically resume on record number 12, which is the first unmarked record. Now I'll go ahead and point out a few little things here. If you need to find the first unmarked record yourself, you can hit the find button. We also allow you to jump quickly to a specific record number, so that can be handy. And let's say I wanted Foxtrot to rerun all my records, even the ones that were marked. Well, in order to allow Foxtrot to do that, I'd first have to unmark all my records. And you could either manually unmark each record one at a time, or more easily I could select the unmark all option on the list on the left. I can also choose to mark all the records, so Foxtrot will not run those. So now that we see how easy it is to build that, we're going to go ahead and run this at full speed. So what I do is I slide my selector all the way to max. I'm going to go ahead and hit rewind and hit play. So you'll see here that Foxtrot's going to move more quickly. In fact, it's going to move as fast as possible, and the only thing that's slowing it down is how quickly the business app can show me those screens. Now you'll notice a couple things here. Foxtrot doesn't have to worry about the timing of the targets because by default all the actions you create have a 3-second wait for the target to come up. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause my script here because what I want to show you next is I want to show you how you can control how long Foxtrot waits or does not wait for a target. So let's say I were to come back up here, run my menu click action. Now this send data is working with the first name field, but what if it took 30 seconds for this window to come up? How does Foxtrot know to wait for this particular target? Well, we can look at the details of this action by editing the action. And now we're going to revisit the timing tab, which we kind of touched on briefly earlier. You'll see here that our standard wait is 3 seconds. What that means is if we do not see that text box after 3 seconds, we're going to assume that the target is never going to come up and we're going to stop the script. Now many of you know that some business applications take much longer than 3 seconds to serve up the information, so you may need to switch this to a custom wait period, and in this case you could set a maximum wait of 60 seconds. Now the great news about this is that you're not waiting 60 seconds for every record. You're only waiting up to 60 seconds. What that means is if that target comes up after 2 seconds, Foxtrot will detect that and it will automatically proceed. So there's no wasted time. Foxtrot checks for the target every half second. So in this standard 3-second wait, we check 6 times. You can also choose no wait, which means Foxtrot will look for the target exactly 1 time, and if it doesn't see that target, it'll continue on or it'll stop the script. And then we also have a wait indefinitely, which is if you want to wait for something to come up on the screen no matter how long it takes. Again, the example often used is waiting for an email to come into an inbox. So I'm going to double click this to send the first name to the first name field, and you'll see that it put that information in. Now if I were to hit cancel and that field is no longer on the screen, let's see what happens when I run that again. The target was not found, so the script stops. Now I'm going to run that a third time and you'll see here it says locating target and it counts down from 3 seconds to 1, target not found. Now there are situations where we don't care if the target is found or not found. An example of this might be if we come in here, we put in the first name, we put in the last name, and let's say after it puts in the email address, let's say this email address was invalid information. What that means is if I were to click the add button, our business application throws up this error. Well, this may or may not appear depending on whether or not that email address was valid. In the situations where the email address was valid, I don't need to worry about this screen, therefore I don't need to worry about clicking yes. However, if it does come up with this error, I want Foxtrot to click yes to automatically add that. So this is an example of refining our script to be even smarter, handling a new scenario that we didn't handle in our original pass through this. Now you could choose to do an if statement to say if the target is found, then I want to click it. You can also be a little more savvy by just sending a click to the yes, and on the error handling say ignore the error and continue if it did not find the target. What that means is if this is on the screen right now and I execute the click, it performs it as desired. If I run this again, Foxtrot is not going to find it, but it's okay, it doesn't complain, and it continues on. So this is an example of handling or not caring whether the target is found or not found. If it's not there, it continues. If it is there, it'll click it and keep on going. So you see how Foxtrot can very quickly enter a large amount of information. So now that you kind of get the basic understanding of how Foxtrot interacts with these targets, I'm going to go ahead and point out a few other things that you may not be aware of. The first is Foxtrot works with Internet Explorer just as well as it does any business application. Here we see that there's a picture of the target we've chosen. Again, there's a smart short list of actions available for that target, and you could build this script for a web application just as you would your standard Windows applications. So now that you've seen how to create a script, I wanted to touch on a few things available down here in the View Center to wrap up. Variables. For those of you familiar with variables, Foxtrot allows you to create those directly in your script project. So let's say if I were to create a variable called version, and let's say there was a piece of information on the screen I'd like to retrieve from my business application. So I can target the version number of the address book. I can choose copy data because I want to copy it from the address book. And you'll see here's a picture of what exactly is being copied. And then I can choose where to store this information. Well, in this case I'm going to pull it back into my variable. So now in my variable view, in my View Center, I can see that my variable has now been populated with the value that you see on the screen. So that's how you would pull information off of the screen. Then I can use that variable somewhere else if I needed to. I'm going to look at the file templates here a moment, because file templates are the way that you can generate a database of information from information pulled out of your application, or it also allows you to build any kind of auditing log or trace logs that you want to build during the scripting process. So what that means is I wanted to set up what's going to be in my file. So I have to first define the file with my template. I'll call it my file. I choose the file path. Put this on the desktop. Call it my file. And it's going to create it in a CSV format so that you can easily open it in any application, including Excel. You can even open the information again in Foxtrot if you needed to. Now down here you'll see that there's a blank slate of what you want in your file, so you can click Add Item, and we give you access to a whole slew of things that you can put in there, as I mentioned earlier. So this is an example of where I may want to use a timestamp. And let's say I want to put a timestamp and I want to put the account number from my database. Now my file template has been set up, so it's ready for use in my script. So anytime I want to stamp an entry into that file, again, that file already knows exactly what you want in it. You would simply go up and use the Write Data File action. When you choose this, you'll see that it lists all the file templates you've created, and you simply check the one that you want write a line to, and then click OK. That now becomes part of my database, or part of my script rather, and you'll see it again creates that step and it also executes it. So I can open up this CSV in any application including Notepad, and you'll see here that it automatically includes the field names at the top followed by the row of information in here. So if I were to move to another record and run that again, I can check my file and we'll see that that's now been included in our file here. Here's our second account number. So this is how you could generate a database of information. Essentially, you could have a set of variables that you've set up. You copy information out of your business application into your variables, and then write those variables out as a line in your file here. Rinse and repeat, and you'll generate line after line of information coming out of your business application. So that's what the file templates are all about. Lookup lists are a great way that you can translate information. What that means is, let's say for example I have a list of offices in my company, and depending on what state a customer lives in, I want to assign them to a specific office. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and call my lookup list offices. So the first column I'm going to add is state, and the next one is office number. And this is how, if I had the state in my database, let's say it's Florida, and I wanted to go into my business application and say, oh, this customer's in Florida, I want to assign it to office 002, you could set that up in your lookup list. So now I get to add a row to my list, and you'll notice state and office number are available here because this is what we've set up previously. So now I can add an entry. Florida goes to 002, and I can add another one. Let's say Georgia goes to 004, and you can see you can very easily set up your list here. And these lists can be reused. You can import these lists into other projects, and I'll show you the import feature in just a moment. So now I have this set up. You'll see now the offices lookup list appears in my list here, and when selected it shows you a preview of the list that I've designed. So now what I'm going to do is, let's say in the middle of adding a customer, I wanted to come over to this field and enter in the office number associated with the state the customer resides. So I'm going to go ahead and target this field. I want to send information to the field, and I'm going to go ahead and use my lookup list now as a way to choose what data I want to send. So I'm going to go to lookup. Here's my office. This is a preview of the list we created. We get to choose the value that in order to look up the corresponding value. So here I'm going to grab state, which is Florida. So now I've got state. What column am I going to use that FL to search? Well, I'm going to search the state column, and I want to return the office number. So see here it shows you it's pulling back 002. So it's essentially gone to the list, looked up what office goes to Florida, and it makes that easily accessible to you here. We click Add to Expression, and that's how we can use that lookup function. Now, if I were to run this right now, it would simply put 002 in my notes field in my business application. So I want to make this a little nicer. I can say this customer has been assigned to office, and then it'll put in the office number just like that. This customer has been assigned to office 002. So now if I were to move to another record and run the same action, but let's say this time this customer, I'm going to switch him to New York, run that again, we can see this customer has been assigned to office 006. So this is a great way to build lots of complicated data matching in your script without having to drown your script with a ton of different if actions to figure out what office number to assign. You set up your lookup list, and Foxtrot takes care of the heavy lifting.